geeks and peeps, and welcome to Brother Reviewable, a podcast where two brothers review films, shows, games, and you name it. I'm here with my co-host and my brother, Addison Ellis. How you doing, bro?
I'm alive and well. What are we trying to do, Stewie?
Oh, good. Well, so we saw two films today, and I think a perfect theme. Are you ready for the theme? You ready for a theme for this episode, Ad?
What is it?
The theme is disappointment. I was looking forward to Lightyear and Thor, but unfortunately, they were very meh, if not kind of bad. I don't know what your feelings are over the situation, in any way, shape, or form.
Well, they can click off the video now. They got your opinion, so that's good. Yeah, I'd say there was an air of disappointment. I think I had higher expectations, definitely, for the Thor sequel, but yeah, Lightyear had a promising setup. We'll get into that a little bit later, but in a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? They kind of squandered that, I thought.
Yeah, at the very least, I would have hoped that Lightyear would have been fun. I knew I had a feeling it wasn't supposed to be like this giant, emotionally driven, complex film, because it's clearly just supposed to be a cash grab. But even then, it's kind of meh on that level. But
yeah,
I guess we'll just lead into Lightyear then. What's the overall plot of Lightyear?
So it feels a bit divided into like a third and then the last 2/3, right? So the first third, we begin with Buzz Lightyear, Space Ranger. He accidentally ends up causing this colony ship to crash land on a planet, and they are essentially stranded. They don't have the capacity to warp jump, kind of equivalent. And as the years go on, they set up a program while still just kind of trying to make a best of a bad situation to try to find the formula to make this one compound that allows warp travel to happen. And so Lightyear essentially vows to, devote his life to keep testing, keep trying to break that warp barrier. And as he does it, the loop he performs goes around the sun, and as it turns out, he discovers, even though you think he'd know this, he's a pilot, astronaut. Anyway, but time speeds up for everybody on the planet, and so the friends he makes, every time he takes a trip, they age by, was it 3 years?
7 years, I think.
7 years. And
I think it's 7 years.
So everybody he knew and loved, he watches get older, and the society of the, literally starts becoming like, the great grandkids of the people he, first arrived on the planet with, they're forming a civilization and just trying to, again, make do. We're just going to live here, I guess. Things aren't looking too good, to the point where this whole program of trying to discover a way out is shut down, and through a various series of events, he gets the formula to do it, to do the warp thing. He does it. It works. He comes back, and by that point, for some reason, Zurg, his arch enemy, or who would become his arch enemy, has began an invasion on the planet, and he's got to get together with a ragtag group of ancestors again of the people he worked with to fight against them, get the formula and the thing back to the group, which we'll talk about later. That pays off, and encounter and kind of confront Zurg directly. Buzz Lightyear save the day, supposedly. Yeah, so that's basic summary. So again, that first third is all about that, trying to go back, trying to fix the mistake, and that last 2/3 is about him with the ragtag group, figuring out the situation, some bonding, some emotional growth for Buzz, I guess, and
some plot twists near the end.
Yeah, because we go, where'd Zurg come from, and where, what are these? Yeah, so we find all that out. too.
Yeah. As you said, really that first third is probably the most enjoyable bit.
Yeah. It also feels the most Pixar, kind of.
Yeah, it does the whole up sort of montage.
Yeah.
You know, I guess we'll just go into spoilers at this point. But overall, it's a very disappointing, and there's a film. There's a lot of weird, dumb plot points that don't make much sense.
Yeah.
And just a lot of the writing is just, it just feels very undercooked and not well thought out. And we also must preface, too, that the whole gimmick of this film is that it's supposed to be the in-universe movie that Andy watches that inspires him to want to get the Buzz Lightyear memorabilia and toy and all that stuff. And it really doesn't feel like the film that would inspire him. It feels oddly more adult type of sci-fi story. For not necessarily for kids completely, it feels kind of off.
Yeah, because that whole premise, that's kind of fun, but they don't do anything as far as the actual like movie and the art direction or the story or anything that really like plays into that.
Yeah, of course they make nods to Toy Story, like they outright copy some of toy Buzz Lightyear's quotes and some things he does in the movies, and then they just replicate it in this film, like quote unquote realistic, I guess, version of the character. And like there's some small like little nods to the 90s, like I guess he blows on like a CPU system like you would do with like a Nintendo cartridge or something like that. Like there's minor stuff, but really it doesn't feel like a movie from the 90s. And if anything though, in comparison, the Buzz Lightyear animated film that was more or less a pilot for the series felt more in line with something that I would think that the character of Andy would enjoy.
Is it Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger was the series?
Or Star Command or something like that, I think.
There you go.
One of the two.
No, I think you got it.
Yeah. And that one, again, that one has, like, it's just, like, really bright colors. It's a kid's show or kid's movie for sure, but it has far more characterization. And we'll go into that a little bit later, but yeah, going to spoilers,
we were both disappointed to some degree. We'll just say that before we go.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of promise, but it generally just feels like a cash grab in like the laziest way possible.
Yeah. Which
is unfortunate because I kind of like this gimmick. I think it'd be kind of a fun thing to see like a Ringo-esque Woody type of film. That'd be kind of fun to do kind of like a proper Western thing or something like that. But I doubt after the lack of success of this film, they're probably not going to do that. I don't think this is doing too well. I think last time I heard it only got about 200 million worldwide. So I don't know.
Only 200 million.
That might not even be broken even. I would imagine. I would have to see the full budget, but I don't really know.
Yeah.
But normally, a Disney product is probably around 100 million to make. But anywho, but yeah, so there's a montage sequence in the beginning once he's doing the whole relativity thing with going around the sun, and of course everybody gets older, and it is probably the most impactful thing in seeing friends get slowly older and older, and them living their life while he's kind of just doing it for his job.
He's doing it, but also it's like he considers it like I have sworn. This is like a sacrifice thing for him. Like I need to do this because I need to rectify the mistake. And again, there's like zero consideration of like you say, like live your life. You got an opportunity here to continue. But it's also like this tragic thing about like he probably feels on some level that he's failed them to some degree, and that's like there's a message between his best friend to him, and it's just like there's some sense trying to like get him to forgive himself on some level, because it's like it's just we're trying.
That's true.
It's understandable, but
yeah, no, and again, I like that element, but it is kind of weird to have it fully focused around like a Buzz Lightyear thing. I think that's a bit, I don't know. Buzz Lightyear, at least from the outset, doesn't really seem like his aesthetic is based around time travel stuff, but
no, I don't know. I mean, you're taking an element that was explored to, because they understood the dramatic impact of it in like Interstellar, and it's just that conceptually that's such a disturbing thing, But again, it's like that feels most Pixar because usually they have an element in there that feels mature or, something that embodies like, that's a thoughtful, thematic consideration. And I thought they did it pretty well for that first third.
Mm-hmm.
I think they could have done a little bit more in the smaller details regarding like the evolution of people and the community living on this super hostile planet.
Which doesn't really go anywhere because the planet itself is inhabited by like plant tentacle monster things, but it's more of an annoyance, and it never comes back at the last half. It's like gone. It's so strange.
And I was so disappointed because like it didn't seem like any of the colonists like adapt fully to the hostile plants. I mean, they have like decades pass, and like none of them become like, okay, like this is like secondhand, just like intuitive, instinctual knowledge at this point. Okay, there's a killer vine, come slice. It's like a natural thing that would happen. Like kids grew up here. They're going to grow up in this, literally in this environment. Like they're going to adapt some.
Yeah.
So they never really play with that. It's always the same kind of annoying struggle with the wildlife or anything. Like, okay.
Yeah. And then it's just gone. Yeah. Like when Buzz gets back from the future, the entire planet's almost barren for no reason.
Yeah. Well, we see the beetles. They pop up. But we don't see, I don't think, the crazy vines again.
Did they insinuate that the beetles were causing the lack of?
No, they're just part of the vicious wildlife.
Yeah, so go figure. Oh, speaking of like lack of like payoff regarding the world, so there's one point in the film where they have to get to the dark side of the planet, and one of the younger characters, who's the granddaughter of Buzz's best friend before he started like time traveling, she was like, "Oh no, like we're going to the dark side of the planet. That's not good." And that has no payoff in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and they set up clearly that the Star Command colonists have set up like a mining situation. They mentioned that very passingly in the opening after they're crash landed on this thing. They use the planet's natural resources to help build this thing. So they set up a mine, like a strip mine kind of thing. And so it's just like, okay, is there deadly fauna? Or flora? What's the issue? And they never do anything with it. It's just such a weird thing.
Yeah, like if anything, they could have reincorporated the Beatles, make it like a Apollo 18, where there's like creepy hidden rock creatures or like insects hidden in the darkness or something like that. That would have been terrifying and a nice little. Like I wonder if they cut it due to time or something in the scripting phase. Who knows?
And an additional reason to like cut out the space program because we have to keep sending people over to the dark side of the planet, and we're losing, miners or something like that, and it's a dangerous path to trek. So we're going to shut that down as well, just to spare people's lives. See, that's like another reason they get, good reason to do it. But no,
yeah, exactly.
It's just on the dark side of the planet. That's it.
Yeah. And this is kind of a different thing, but regarding the whole point of their journey, they're supposed to be landing on a habitable planet. Star Command is an official governmental organization, so don't you think they'd be calling for like help or trying to ask for help, or you think that Star Command would be trying to look for them as a result? They don't really go into that. Like, are they the only humans alive at this point? We don't really know. They don't explicitly say.
But maybe, their comms or something are unlimited. I mean, you look at something like, what is it, Star Trek Voyager, the whole concept is they end up on the other side of, like, essentially the galaxy kind of thing, so far away that it'd take 80 Earth years for any communications to reach like, Star Command. Or there's something to that effect, I think. It's just ridiculous. Like, how do you do this?
Yeah. But then they established, like at the very end of the film, they established the Star Command. So Buzz Lightyear officially gets his proper jetpack and all this stuff. And they established that. So it's like, okay, I guess they're just going to make the best of the situation and just grow an entire government organization on this random planet that they crashed on now.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird.
And it raises so many questions.
Yeah.
Why? I think they suggest that they don't want to deal with another Zerg situation, which we'll get into Zerg.
Yeah.
But the objective, secure the solar system? Maybe? Because spoilers, the whole goal of Buzz Lightyear's thing is to get that warp fuel chemical balance, which he, like, don't ask me why. This robot cat figures out the calculations over the course of a 60-year trips in space. But the cat figures it out. They put it on a computer. He gives them the calculations. They make the thing. It's successful. And through various hijinks, the computer on which the cat was working breaks. And so suddenly, for some reason, the robot cat doesn't have the formula memorized. And that's it. And so they only have this one thing of the formula. And for various reasons, guess what? Buzz sacrifices the warp fuel at the end. So, it's kind of
He can destroy Zurg.
It's a form of acceptance to save his friends. He chooses his friends over, I guess, the success of the mission or something. I don't even know anymore. But
it's really stupid.
It's kind of. But anyway, so they don't have that fuel anymore. So they can't, like, rapidly travel even between the planets in their solar system. So what are they going to monitor exactly? It's going to be like, they'd be spending years or months and months and months, or possibly years, to get in between the planets of this one solar system. Not even to consider trying to make it to another solar system. I mean, think about how far we are from, like, the Milky Way. And it's just...
I mean, like, it would have been fun if they didn't blow up Zurg's ship and, like, okay, we can use this as our outpost, like in the cartoon where they have their floating Justice League outpost, but around Earth. It's like, okay, now that can give, like, a reason to how they could go to different worlds now, because they have a ship that can literally go to different planets in probably a different galaxy. But they explode that.
Yeah.
So that goes nowhere.
Yeah. And I should say, just because it's correct, because I got the science wrong. Solar system, I suggested the Milky Way. That's a different galaxy. They can't even consider a different galaxy. They can't even consider a different star system. It just is like they're going to patrol above the planet, maybe?
It's so stupid. And speaking of the whole fuel, so it's kind of cute. They create the fuel. It's like 4 different colored ingredients, and essentially it's all about the different numbered ratios that you combine each ingredient. So you have like a quarter of each ingredient. You have to figure out what ratio of each to create the fuel. It's kind of cute, but the calculation is so simple. It's like you need like 4% of this fuel, like 20% of this fuel, and for some odd reason, like those like 4 different numbers the cat can't remember, yet it remembers Buzz Lightyear for 70 years as it calculates the fuel ratio. And it's just like, it's the dumbest crap. It's like you remember all this other stuff, but yet you can't remember 4 numbers to create this fuel. It's really lazy writing.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. Again, there's not a lot of thought put into this thing when it comes to when you start breaking it down. Like, it doesn't. And I know they're gonna say it's a kids movie. You're not supposed to think.
Yeah.
But it's like, once you start stepping into science fiction, not science fantasy, science fiction, you are going to start, like, just inherently start posing these questions. Not to mention the fact that they choose the bits of science that they want to use, specifically the whole relativity thing. They play that so hard, and it's a very real thing. Again, it's like, that would be, it's a terrifying thing to consider in the great big universe, that's something that would happen, depending on where you are next to certain celestial bodies and stuff. And, like, they play that up so hard. And it's just like all these other things, which are just kind of just relatively basic, like, logical thought things, like, they don't do it. Like, they haven't thought it through. They haven't put the work in to make that make sense.
Nope. And speaking of, shall we talk about Zurg?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the big twist is that Zurg is actually an older Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah.
In a giant mech suit.
Yeah, it's a Buzz Lightyear that went off in a separate, not a dimension, I guess parallel timeline. So when this Buzz Lightyear comes back after successfully circling the sun and lands and is trying to save people, this other Buzz Lightyear, I guess you could argue it's the same Buzz Lightyear, I don't know. He runs away after being threatened by the powers that be at the time for breaking all the rules and traveling around the sun successfully. And so he goes away. happens to find this abandoned robot ship and robots attached to it, and then he finds the Zurg suit, which he goes into, and he just becomes this jaded guy trying to rebuild the formula, I think, again.
No, he has the fuel, but the thing is, he experiments with it, and he's able to time travel backwards with it somehow.
Yeah, and so he changes the path of time. So technically, we're seeing Buzz Lightyear like version 2 or something. The main plot is like you're following Buzz in version 2, which is he's now messing with the timeline. He's interrupted series of events that led to him leaving the planet and discovering the robot ship, and he's forging something new. And so that's the core thing. It's again some kind of metaphorical representation of Buzz's fight within himself, between learning to care for others and work as a team and care about, I guess, just people, the individual, rather than like lofty concepts of duty and honor or something like that. And then it was really disappointing. Zurg was fun in the other properties, man.
Yeah, like he's not even an emperor in this. Yeah. Emperor, like that's the whole point. He's like this. He's kind of like, I guess, like a generic sort of Shakespearean kind of flowy and eloquent sort of villain to an extent.
In the original depiction.
Yeah, in the animated film primarily. I know in the Toy Story movies, he's more of like just a generic robot.
But there's still some character to him too. He's like, "No, Buzz, I am your father." No, I mean,
he's Darth Vader.
Yeah, but there is like a play on the dramatic. He's got like the whole arch villain sensibilities kind of thing. But in this one, he barely says a few words as Zurg, the robot, and he's just like you say, he's just big dumb robot in this.
Yeah, and it's so lame, and
then before he becomes Buzz, that's it, and he's just angry Buzz. He's the negative Buzz version, and
this type of plot has been done so many times.
I think you mentioned this too. It's not even like Lost in Space did kind of a version of this.
Yes, essentially it's Lost in Space.
It just. I think it's the least interesting route they probably could have gone, and especially tied in with it again, the script being really dumb. He just finds the robot suit and stuff, and it's not like the robot's corrupting him. It's not like there's not some sort of wider influence. It's literally just, I found some robots in space, now they're mine.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think it's like a worse version of the villains from Star Trek Beyond. Essentially, that's the same thing in that when they crash land on a planet and they happen to find this technology of this ancient civilization that no longer is there, but they're able to control it and they mutate over time.
Yeah, but there's so much more to that too. Like it's also keeping them alive. It gives them immortality in exchange for it. And then also they feel betrayed by their government because they're a bunch of like soldiers who are now forced to surrender and be at peace, and there's all the weight that comes with that. They're just not willing to. They didn't want it. And so there's like way more depth to it. In this one, it's again just, okay, Buzz was betrayed by his government, and now I'm gonna go back in time and fix it. And because I happened to find the right technology, and there's just nothing to it. There's nothing fun. I mean, if they want it, it's again, like, I guess maybe again because it's like a Pixar kids movie thing, they can't go like hardcore, like he's fusing with the machine or it's infecting him in some way. Maybe that could come off as too visually like graphic or something. I don't know. But it's just
that'd be kind of cool.
But it's just the simplest possible twist, and they could come up with.
Shall we talk about the supporting cast of characters who are kind of boring?
No, I think you spoiled yourself there. Spoiled your opinions there.
Another through line is that Taika Waititi is in both of these.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and he's arguably annoying in both of these.
Definitely more so, I think, in this one.
Yeah, he's fine. I like Korg in the first Ragnarok, but he gets it. I don't know. I feel like he's kind of nothing in this new one, but I don't know. But yeah, no, Taika Waititi's in this one. I have no idea who the elderly actress is. It's probably a famous, Hollywood actress from back in the day. But and then is it Keke Palmer is the granddaughter of Buzz Lightyear's friend from his at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
And they're cadets in training. The elderly gal is kind of an ex-con kind of thing. And then Taika Waititi is just kind of like, he just did it out of a whim of interest. And then, of course, Keke Palmer is kind of, she wants to fill the shoes that her grandmother did back in the day. So they're fine. They try to boost their, at least primarily with Keke Palmer and Buzz Lightyear, they try to really connect their emotional, try to have emotional connection, kind of relate a little bit like he did with her grandmother.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. It also feels like they're trying to, the more I think about it, it's like they're trying to rush what could have also been an interesting, heavy, again, subject matter for, relatively for kids movie, which is, okay, now all this time has passed. Your concept of what it means to be a space ranger has been mythologized and or lost to the generations to come. And that's another, that's another interesting, like, conceptually feels very Pixar in terms of like bringing up something that'd be like, oh, yeah, it gave you a pause while still being relatively like light film kind of thing. But the idea of like time has kind of passed you by, which that comes up a lot in Pixar films. Time has passed you by, and how again things you understand are now different. And again, they kind of play with that because Keke Palmer is like, you're a real space ranger. Like, holy crap, man, that's like that's crazy. And again, it's like, for video game fans out there, it's like, again, like Marines meeting, like Master Chief or Spartans. Again, be like, holy cow, and you compare them, and they're just not. There's no comparison. They're just like a militia force versus like a legit person with all the right training and stuff. And they kind of set that up. It's just I don't think they follow through with it. And again, Keke Palmer living in her great grandmother's shadow, kind of, sorta, but also it's like, that's a whole other thing. Like that's because that's what she talks about, right? Like, I'll never be my grandmother.
Essentially.
It's like, who put that weight on you? Like, why are you carrying that with you right now? Was that an expectation put on you or something? Or you might have had dreams to be a space ranger, but you don't need to be as great as your grandmother. Where's that coming from?
Yeah, because they established that the grandmother had a son, and he looked like he went. Oh, of course, because they're a colony, they probably have to go immediately into the military force because they're a military colony. But that father character that's established is never seen again after like a one quick scene in a montage. And it's kind of strange that they kind of leave like a character out like that. I don't know why. Like, you'd think he would have some, like, why couldn't they go back for Star Command at this point, once Buzz is in the future, is being helmed by a military leader who doesn't agree with Lightyear's mission. He wants to completely retire that idea, and he wants to just focus on living on the planet and establishing a force field and what have you. So Lightyear is then a rogue fugitive. That military leader guy, why couldn't they make him the father of Keke Palmer? So now you have a sort of, he wants to establish a military, I don't know, like he could have, like
well, because the big thing that, okay, so again, Keke Palmer's great grandmother, her goal, let's get, and here in Buzz Lightyear's goal, let's get off the planet. This new guy's plan is, let's just turtle down, put up a shield so we don't have to deal with the vicious wildlife, devote all our resources to doing that. That's it. We're good. We'll just live out life here. That's fine. And yeah, that would be a good setting up why Keke Palmer and her ragtag group were on the outskirts too. That'd be a fun setup. Like, like, no, we were kind of, we believed in continuing the scouting or something like that, or like going out and again establishing
adventure.
Yeah, the different kind of belief systems and the kind of like their contradiction would lead to headbutting between like father and daughter or something. That'd be interesting, and like that would also add to the general's character. So the general wouldn't just be so simple as like, I mean, he could turtle down. Is it optimal? Why would you want to shut down this program? Literally, Buzz Lightyear accomplished exactly what he wanted to do. And with one more trip, he just wanted one more trip, and he had the formula to do it. So it's like,
what was it costing people? Was this costing Buzz Lightyear? Like, if anything, everybody else was doing fine.
But if it was Keke Palmer's grandmother's, if that was her son, then that means like I watched my grandmother hold on to this dream her whole life. And it's just like, it kind of like, maybe that, she lived a good life, but it's just like, it was, it's this constant reminder of like this wishful thinking or something, They could tie it back to the character. Like it's not just, I want to build a force field because force field laser, but it's just, but it becomes more character driven as well. It doesn't, now those things don't have to be, but when again, the logic isn't fully there, if you tie it in with an emotional decision, you can make that like conceptually work. And again, again, that the headbutting between him and like, again, if Keke Palmer was his daughter, like just like, did they go with like this second draft or something?
It feels like they were getting close to this.
Yeah, like you could see like beginnings of good ideas and interesting through lines, but again, like the script is half baked. Like it needed a few more drafts, man. Like you say, you could feel it. You can feel these things like just like they're beginning interesting ideas, but they're just not connecting them up. That's why, again, very messy scripts. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, and if anything, that is the worst part. Like everybody's doing a good job. Like all the actors do decent jobs. Chris Evans does a really good job. I quite like him in the role. He's solid. He's doing Captain America essentially.
Keke Palmer's a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. So like everybody's like solid, and like the animation looks amazing. The texture work, the lighting, like there's some interesting stuff here. But it's really just the script, which is completely trash, and it's such a disappointment, a waste of money, to create this thing.
Yeah, and a lot of waste of a lot of possibly good concepts and ideas that they just don't follow through with. Again, going back, if they could like held up with the '90s concept that this was a film made in the 90s, is what inspired the Buzz Lightyear toy line and what inspired Andy to go out and get really involved in space stuff and go through a space phase. 90s it up, man. Broad colors and stuff like that, goofy outfits, or, just like the tech with a bunch of analog colorful analog buttons might be a bit mine, not necessarily, but
it's like this like giant button like jellies that you just press, and then it's like it just glows a certain color, just something that's like harkens back to the 60s in a way. Like it's like what the animated film did. 100%. That's completely what the animated film did in the 90s.
Like it's just hilarious to me that, again, at the end when they're wearing their proper like Space Ranger uniforms and stuff, like, okay, yeah, but that seems completely different to everybody else's form of dress and everybody else's other uniforms that they have set up. It's just kind of funny because, again, that design is very 90s, kind of 90s spaceman.
Yeah, like the whole white and green and purple, it doesn't seem to be a consistent characteristic of the Star Command in the early days of the film. It's very strange why it's just that, just for those exosuits or whatever. It's kind of, it's very confused.
Yeah.
So overall, I think just a very disappointing film. It's kind of amazing that this film's doing as badly as it is, since the IP is so well beloved. It is kind of
confusing conceptually. I mean, I think as far as for like a general audience, like, okay, we know Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story. This is about the toy Buzz? No, this is about his in-universe canon. Just kind of like, that's very, I don't know. Maybe it's too high a concept. I mean, but it is just not doing well at all. I mean, I just looked on, read some stuff on IMDb, and it's like it's resting a little bit above a 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for general like user reviews, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. Oh my word.
Yeah.
So yeah, what a waste. What a waste of good actors. Again, a lot of good creativity for this piece of trash cash grab.
So I don't know if I'd be that harsh on it. It's just I feel, I don't hate it. I feel disappointed. I have no desire to see it. I don't feel passionate anger in it. Again, all I feel is just kind of sad, kind of disappointed about it. That's all.
It's really pathetic.
Yeah.
It's really just a pathetic film.
Yeah, it just, I don't know if it was rushed or what. Something happened maybe behind the scenes, but they didn't really get a chance to iron out that script, or somebody just said, no, this is fine. You shouldn't have been making that decision.
Speaking of, should we? Speaking of really ironing out a script, we should talk about Thor: Love and Thunder. Woof.
Yeah.
And if Lightyear was a disappointment, I think Love and Thunder for me was a massive disappointment.
Yeah, I was holding a bit higher expectations just because Thor Ragnarok is so doggone good.
Yeah, and then, like, that has its problems, but like it really, this one is even worse than that. Like the whole Hela like subplot in Thor Ragnarok, which was kind of the more criticized elements of the film, which I kind of agree. It was a kind of okay. It's kind of worse than this. It's even like so. Okay, all right. So overall opinions, it's very disappointing, and it clearly seems like Taika Waititi just didn't care, or he wasn't fully invested in it. It just seems very messy as a film.
Yeah, and it's kind of lacking some of his characteristic blending of both drama and comedy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It struggles through a lot of those moments, which I think seemed a lot almost like effortless in like Ragnarok.
And like Ragnarok too had like a vision. It had like this 80s sort of like Transformers cartoon aesthetic with them going to I was gonna say Jakku, but that's Star Wars.
No,
what are the garbage planet that Jeff Goldblum runs and all this stuff. So it has like a very 80s kind of synthwave aesthetic. In this, it kind of feels like generic, slightly cartoony fantasy. Like kind of like a He-Man. I think that's what they're definitely going for, but it just kind of is boring aesthetically, and like a lot of the action I felt was kind of awfully done in this too. It wasn't nearly as interesting as it was in Ragnarok. In Ragnarok, you could see a lot of the action, a lot of wide shots, a lot of fun cuts. In this, there's a lot of quick cutting. It's just boring choreography a lot of the times.
Yeah, some neat stuff with certain weapons and stuff conceptually.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We'll get more to that in spoilers probably.
Yeah. Like this overall, it feels like that a lot of his direction was on autopilot. And I feel like that goes with the pacing as well, in which like the film is like a consistently fast pace. Nothing much really happens in the story. And we'll go into that here. Yeah. But it's just like, it feels like a very long film for a very short story. They could have rewritten to be a bit more meaty. And it's just, there's a lot of elements that I do like, especially the ending, which feels unearned for the film as a whole.
Yeah.
And it's just a kind of a waste. Like Lightyear, a waste of good concepts.
Yeah, there's certain things the theme set up early on regarding Thor having lost everybody and everybody important in his life, and him trying to deal with that loss and grieving and all that jazz. But like I say, I think there's a mix of, again, the action sequences not being particularly interesting. I think the villain conceptually is very interesting. I think some of his scenes were played as well as they could have been. And again, just things moving so rapidly that, unlike Ragnarok, where there are scenes where the characters are allowed to breathe a little and just interact and hang out and talk. There's a few of those in here, but feels a little narrative-y driven, not necessarily driven by the characters. We can get into that in a sec here. But yeah, overall,
yeah, I agree with
just kind of disappointing. Or actually a little bit more than disappointing. Kind of. It's a lot of disappointing.
Yeah. And this is a purely subjective thing, but I honestly feel the comedy is kind of worse than this, and I found it to be really cringy in scenes. I don't know why. I feel like Ragnarok was a lot funnier. Like I don't know. I felt that there was a lot. It felt more of like his New Zealand comedy too. I don't know. Just this felt a little bit more. It was trying to be a lot broader, and
again, it's funny. Like I think back to Ragnarok, it seemed again. It's like effortless. It feels like effortless in terms of the scene. Okay, the scene's funny because it just is. There's something. There's light. It's the good pacing. There's a good interaction between the actors and the bouncing off the characters, and the dialogue's well done. This one, it feels like it's trying. It's trying to be funny. It's trying to sort of joke here.
Yeah, it's so strange that again, because I've only seen a few of his Watiti's films, but like usually he's pretty on point with his comedy. It's so strange that he's so off here.
Coming up next on this YouTube channel, Ian creates a video essay comparing Thor Ragnarok and Thor
right.
Love and Thunder. Why does this one work? Why doesn't this one work?
Well, that'd be. I mean, I can get my girlfriend on this because again, she analyzes how comedy works. But before we get into the plot itself, too, just another thing. Like a lot of the acting, I thought was really off too. I don't know if this was prevalent or if you noticed this too. Like I just felt like Chris Pratt's acting was just like he was just kind of phoning it in for this.
Yeah,
a little bit. And even kind of like Natalie Portman in some scenes. Like, I don't know if she's ever going to come back to the series or she's just doing this for a paycheck. Because I knew she wanted to get off of the Thor series and Marvel in general.
Yeah, that's how she was gone for a number of films, right?
Yeah, I think because Patty Jenkins was supposed to direct Dark World. And then after she left, due to creative differences, Portman wanted to leave after that. So I don't know. I from her especially, I kind of get really awkward acting vibes, or maybe some lines she clearly is not interested in it. Again, it could be that she was just given bad directions because she is kind of an actress that is dependent on her director, it seems, to do a good performance. But in this, I kind of got weird Winona Ryder acting vibe with some line deliveries, and it just felt that, I don't know, it could have been a lot of the bad direction. Even like what TT himself with Korg, even Korg seemed kind of just like phoning it in, which is kind of strange because he was really funny, I think, in Ragnarok, and he's just kind of dry and like really sweet kind of character. In this, he kind of has that, but it's just kind of, his energies is off.
Well, we can talk about it more, but I also, because it's kind of just the more I'm thinking about it too, maybe it has something to do with what characters have been pushed to the forefront, kind of thing, and what characters are bouncing off one another. I think that might have something to do with it, but yeah, we'll get into that. But let's get into spoilers here.
Yeah, so the overall plot is that Thor is having a crisis of who he is. And the film begins with him working with the Guardians, but clearly he's not in it. He just doesn't want to deal with this stuff. He kind of just wants to meditate unless he's called upon to really help out with something. And then he is called to action when Lady Sif of the Warriors 3, that Thor was a part of, warns of the God Butcher, who is slaughtering these gods across the galaxy. And Thor is then on a journey to help protect the galaxy or the entire universe from the God Butcher as he wants to destroy all the gods. And through that, he meets his ex-girlfriend, Jane Foster, who is going through cancer treatments.
Yeah, has been diagnosed with stage 4.
Stage 4 of, who knows, just cancer.
Yeah, it's cancer.
It's probably leukemia, I would imagine. It seems like it's more leukemia than like pancreatic or something.
We don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, so she's got cancer, and then Valkyrie is bored as the king of New Amsterdam. What is it? I'm blanking on New
Oh,
Valhalla.
don't wait.
Holy crap!
Whoa, what happened? What happened?
I'm having a dementia moment.
Um.
Oh my god!
This is all gonna be edited out. You're gonna sound perfect. Give me a moment. Asgard.
New Asgard. Yeah. Oh, and a nice little detail. It's kind of sweet. The short videos with Thor's roommate.
Yeah.
He actually appears as the Mjolnir talking guy who talks about Mjolnir. It is.
Oh, that's cool.
That's cute.
Yeah.
That's cute. But yeah, essentially, yeah. So Jane Foster goes to New Asgard to find the remains of Mjolnir because that's the only thing that can save her life, apparently, from what she knows. And anyway, she becomes a new Thor, and when the real Thor, gets back to Earth, he comes across Gore the God Butcher attacking New Asgard, and Gore steals all the kids and holds them for ransom, and it's clearly a ploy to get Thor there, and
as we find
essentially,
out.
Yeah. Don't want to go into the full details because it's kind of a little bit. Essentially, Gore just wants the Thor's axe hammer, and to open a gate to this being that will grant any wish, and he's at the very center of the universe, and stuff happens pretty much. Jane is essentially dying because the hammer is sucking her energy away for some reason, and Gore is able to open the portal up. Thor saves the kids, and Gore wishes his only wish to get his daughter back, which was his entire reason why he became evil to begin with, was because his daughter died.
Well, but to be fair, it only becomes his wish after he's like convinced, because before
by Thor.
He was going to, because he's corrupted by the sword he carries, he's going to wish to kill all gods.
Yeah, exactly. And so Thor wants to be with Jane before she passes, and then maybe even possibly he passes because he thinks that Gore's going to wish him away, but Gore decides to want his daughter back in a very unearned scene. I think it's a good scene, but it feels like the entire film was not well leading up to that point. And then it just ends with Gore dying, Jane going into Valhalla, and pretty much Thor is now a father as he takes on the responsibility of taking care of Gore's daughter, essentially, and hence the subtitle Love and Thunder, love being the daughter and thunder being Thor's nickname from Ragnarok, which is quite a nice little callback. Oh yeah, I forgot they go to City of Gods to get Zeus on their side, but then he's a massive douche.
And so they just take his lightning bolt and move on.
Yeah, again, really not much, like small details, yeah, a lot of happens, but really the overall arching like scenes, there's really not that much that happens.
Yeah, Christian Bale's the God Butcher. He just kidnaps those kids and spends like a third of the film just in space, psychologically freaking out the children.
Yeah, like he's not. I don't even think he's as much of a like his in comparison. Because I know the whole Hela subplot got really criticized in Ragnarok. It was just kind of boring, and this kind of felt like an afterthought. But at least she was incredibly powerful, and they showed the scenes in which she was like showing her power, and she was quite threatening. And again, I think her threatening aura from Kate Winslet.
Yeah,
oh my God. Cate Blanchett, again, really added to that. And so she was a very powerful and threatening character, in that even though her scenes weren't that great, at least we knew what type of character she was and how powerful she was, and that she could beat the crap out of both Thor and Loki.
Yeah, and she was actively doing something during the thing. She wasn't just sitting waiting. She's actively taking back Asgard, establishing herself as the new ruler, trying to eliminate any, sense of rebellion in the community, and, again, trying to bring back, we kind of it's not just I want revenge on all the gods kind of thing. It's like, I want to bring us back to our former glory, make Asgard great again kind of thing. And it's like, okay, we get it. We got it. And also she has someone else to bounce off of. She's got
Carl Urban.
Yeah, Carl Urban to interact with, kind of explain her motivations, and there's a little bit of back and forth and character development between the two and those interactions. So it's like actively, even though you can say this, distracts from the main thing, which is Thor, his brother Loki, and trying to save Asgard and also understand where he fits as king. It also just gives us an opportunity to have some fun with the villain, develop her a little bit, and again have enjoy the actors having it up on screen together or something like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in this film, like, Gore is given so little screen time. He seems like so weak, yet and there's certain scenes in which he overpowers Thor. It doesn't feel earned. He's like in the first battle between him and Thor. It just seems like they're kind of maybe uneven to slightly, like Thor is slightly better than him.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel completely like he's fighting this massive force that can kill him. Yeah. Or maybe that was the point. Maybe he was supposed to be a weakling, but it didn't really make much sense because the ending, he fights him again and he gets his rear handed to Gore.
Even though we don't really know. So kind of spoilers for the main villain here, because we see his origins, right?
Yeah, at the very beginning.
Unlike, Hello, where we are kind of told it and we get kind of some scenes alluding to it. This one, we essentially start from what would be probably the end of his life. He is walking through the desert, horribly burnt, carrying what we assume to be his daughter. And it is his daughter. And it's just such a tragic and pathetic, in the good way, montage of him just trying to give this child like life and time and trying to protect her from the elements. Again, that's probably the most striking image in the whole stinking film for me is just Christian Bale huddled over his daughter behind a rock, keeping the blasts of sand and sun from hitting her. And it's just he's such a powerful, personal sacrifice. But this leads to his daughter dies. He buries her in the sands. He's weeping beside her grave when he hears a voice calling to him. And he follows the voice to this oasis where he finds this god. And he knows that it's his god, the god he's been worshiping and praying to for so long. And the god is just a spiteful little douchebag and, belittles him, mocks him, and they're celebrating because he killed this guy who had the god-slaying sword. And long story short, through various circumstances, Christian Bale's character just slices his hand on it and happens to be infected with it, and the sword becomes one with him and allows him to kill this god who he had been praying to, and now he wants vengeance on him, wants vengeance on all the gods because of, that revelation. And there is something powerful in that recognition of this really very human suffering, contrasted with just these gods celebrating, and specifically the god theory. This is the response to God you'd been praying to, telling you you're just made to suffer. It's okay if you die. I don't care. You're gonna die. So what? You're gonna be a bunch more following after you. That's just there's such a terrifying thing tied to that, and just such a sad nihilistic thing tied to it. That is interesting, but
the execution,
that scene plays out weird. Again, just the balance. It's just so the god character is just so cartoony, evil, and nasty. I mean, it could be in vain with some of the depictions of gods throughout history, especially when you get into you look at the Greek pantheon and what have you, people just being total douchebags all the time. But it's just the tone is so strange. And again, I almost the music is trying to that's the other thing we didn't really talk about. I think the music I wish some scenes were just quiet. They kept putting, trying to make me feel something rather than just letting the scene kind of run its course there. And no, it's just when we get to our villain's execution of his goals is just kind of boring. He's got an army of shadow minion monster creatures, and again, we don't know if he's a warrior or not, but he's kind of powerful, but he's kind of not fully powerful enough. His creatures, I guess, are supposed to be the extension of his power that gives him the ability to, accomplish his goals of slaying all these gods, but it's just, he's not as striking or compelling immediately. He hams it up some for a few of the scenes.
Yeah.
Arguably a bit too much to the point where but just in ways that's not fun or particularly compelling. It's just kind of like, I don't know, he's trying to not Jim Carrey it, but again, just kind of going like so crazy.
He's trying too hard. He's trying a little too hard, I think.
Yeah, he's just so unhinged.
Yeah, like and some like when he's like sarcastic, like there's some line reads where he's actually quite. It's sort of like a jokery sort of vibe I get, and that's kind of fun. That's like he's just kind of in on the joke, and he's just like a little crazy. That's fun, but there are certain things like he really tries to enunciate, and he's really just like giving it all. It's like, yeah, I can tell you're just acting the lines. You're really just trying to make every line emphasized, and it's just
And that's the other thing, that it's like, again, his plan is to kidnap the kids of Asgard so that it will draw Thor and any of his buddies to an isolated location where his powers are pretty doggone powerful, where the enemy, the bad guy's powers are powerful, and he will capture them, get a Stormbreaker.
Yeah.
And he will use its abilities to open a rift to the center of the universe, or a door to the center of the universe, and get that one wish that can be granted. But the method of him kidnapping a bunch of children and threatening their lives, sending his minions to go slaughter them, again, it could be indicative of like, oh, how far he's fallen. But it's like the whole beginning of this thing is that he blames this god for not giving a crap about him or his daughter, no matter how much they prayed, no matter what they believed, and he essentially let his daughter die because he thought they were worms, and just like he's arguably going to possibly lead to the death of a bunch of children.
I never really got the feeling that he was going to try to kill the kids. I thought it was just more.
But he's using them as bait, and then he sends a bunch of monsters at them. That's why they're imbued with the power of Thor.
That's a good point.
End, which is a fun sequence, admittedly.
It's cute. Yeah. And that's the thing, too, with this film as well. It feels very kiddie, like a kid's film in this. Again, going off of the whole weird tone issues that this film has. Yeah. It just seems like it's trying to be really sanitized.
Yeah, no mention of the Grandmaster's orgies.
Oh yeah, apart from
Jeff Goldblum's thing, none of that.
Well, they do talk about orgies in this too.
Oh, they do.
Man, orgies are maybe Zeus like you're no longer
invited to the orgy.
You're no longer invited to the orgy.
That's right. Never mind. Okay, cut that out, Ian.
I get. Yeah, go figure. But
I'm kidding. No,
you're fine.
But that whole section feels weird too.
The whole God section.
Yeah, it's again that you want to talk about things that are ultimately pointless. That whole God section is pointless. Other than, isn't this look cool? Hey, look, it's Russell Crowe.
Oh, look, it's like a weird furry head with this on 2 feet.
Yeah, we get to see the universe's gods in one place, and like, okay, that's neat. What's it doing for the story?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just they need to get Zeus's lightning bolt because that'll be a powerful enough weapon. Stormbreaker and Mjolnir's back fully, by the way, and it's got cool abilities.
Yeah, it can crack into little chunks of metal, and then it can hit people, and then it can reconfigure.
Just think, back and forth. So it's just like, again, it's stinking shotgun blast where the pellets are, forged in the dying star and weigh how many billions of tons.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah. That's fun. But none of those weapons are powerful enough, apparently, to win.
Apparently.
Yeah, so you got to get Zeus's lightning bolt.
Oddly enough, like two of the most powerful weapons in the universe cannot equate to a random low-level god that killed the previous owner of the sword.
Nope.
But, yeah.
It's just like
go figure. Because Zeus establishes like, oh yeah, the god that the first god that Gore killed, that was Gore's god. Oh yeah, he was like low level. He was crap. He was nothing. It could have been conjecture. He could have just been saying this to like a insult. But still, it's like if he is a low level god, he killed a previous owner of the sword.
Yeah,
It's like it's kind of pathetic that Thor apparently can't equate to said strength of a low level god, but.
Yeah, and for the record, and again, other spoilers, Thor sends a stinking lightning bolt through Zeus's chest. He throws it right back at him. He doesn't kill Zeus, mind. That's spoiled in an after-credit scene. But still, like, for a low-level god, quote-unquote, for Thor, he's still pretty doggone well wounded Zeus and took him out of commission for a little bit. It's just like...
Yeah. Again, ever since they established that Thor was his most powerful in Ragnarok... It seems like writers have kind of tried to depower him since then, because in Infinity War and Endgame, he had to get another weapon to harness his power again to help him. Like in Infinity War, you could argue that he needed like something a bit more melee, kind of like a weapon to fight Thanos, because he was really powerful with his gauntlet. But he still used his giant power to destroy an entire field of. I don't know, he did it in the first Thor too, but I don't know.
Well, the significance is that they don't have the space travel as efficiently ability, I think. And then
that too. That's a good point.
Times that with the whole I need a weapon to defeat Thanos, because Thanos has infinity gems. Even if I, just use my own physical power, wouldn't be enough to combat certain of the gems. So assumedly Breaker is a super powered weapon in a number of ways. So.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of, so apparently Stormbreaker and Mjolnir actually have personalities now. They have feelings, and they can argue with Thor, and it's kind of weird. Maybe a little bit too cartoony for my taste. I know it was kind of joked around with the short Thor movies, where like Thor would have Mjolnir in like a cradle or like in bed or something, but I thought that was kind of a cute aside. But this, they kind of go for it. No.
Yeah, he literally talks to Mjolnir like an ex-girlfriend or something.
Yeah, it's very strange.
It's representative of his ex-girlfriend who wields it, okay? And these are the conversations he should be having with her. But he doesn't, because he's nervous and worried about losing her. But no, here's the thing, Ian. That stuff's been around for a while. You don't play a lot of D&D, but in D&D stuff like that pops up, weapons that can talk to you or tempt you or, have personalities. It's just a magical weapon thing.
But once again, it was never established that was ever the case. I mean, I guess Odin did talk to Mjolnir to put on the rite of passage for Thor to pick it up.
Yeah,
I guess
it's like the security lock on it, he who proves himself worthy. And then that's the plot device that there's a loophole where he's talking to Mjolnir, and Mjolnir tells Mjolnir to make sure that nothing happens to Jane, to protect Jane, and Mjolnir actually encodes that as part of the, the deal for his.
That's a nice. Yeah, that's a nice little callback. That's actually quite clever.
Yeah.
But even then, it doesn't make much sense why Mjolnir is sucking all the energy out of Jane, because the whole point is that it's supposed to grant the power of Thor to whomever uses it. So was it sucking the power out of Captain America the entire time he was using the hammer?
No, I think they're suggesting to wield it still requires an amount of physical effort and exertion or something like that, especially because also the difference between she and Captain America might be because Captain America is a friggin' super soldier. He's already pretty doggone close to the human equivalent of a god. So that might be reasonable for him, but in her case, I think the big thing is, she's still dying of cancer. It continues on, and it's not helping the situation, and it's I don't know if it's just the powers of Thor or the actions that she's taking while being under the power of Thor.
But the whole point of because the whole point of searching Mjolnir is that she reads in a book that it's supposed to heal her.
Maybe, yeah. It's like
and because Mjolnir was calling to her to read a book that talked about what it did, and it says it could heal any person.
Okay, that might be your interpretation, but I didn't get the vibe personally that it was like Mjolnir calling her to read the book. It's just, I've exhausted scientific possibilities. Now I'm going to turn to fantasy. It's like an Exorcist, progression of, we've tried everything rational. We have to try maybe something, in this case, mythological.
I think they explicitly say that Mjolnir calls to her.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I know when she gets there, but as far as what drove her to read the book, I thought it was just purely because, again, she had tried everything else. They established that in that montage where none of the...
I would have to rewatch the film again, just to double check.
Sounds like you're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I don't... And speaking of, it's kind of weird that an astrophysicist becomes a biologist and like a health doctor, to the point when she's testing her own cancer stuff on herself.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm not as broken up with it. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of how far does she think she can get with that. That just sudden shift in study. But it kind of makes sense in like a character way, as far as like, I don't want to die. I'm so desperate.
So I'm gonna do it myself.
Yeah, and again, her arc is pretty good too, and as far as like, it goes from I don't want to die to I want to make what time I have left on this earth count. I want it to matter. And so, spoilers for the ending, I mean, she ends up using the power of Thor to the point where it ends up contributing to her death. But it's all in pursuit of trying to help people and save the universe and do something worthwhile.
I kind of feel like they should have at least had one more film to kill her off, because it's very strange to have her reintroduced and kill her off in the same film, and it's just kind of like a waste.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, and that's maybe kind of going back to the dialogue and the scenes and the kind of the bouncing off between the performers. A lot of it just seems to be mainly plot motivated kind of thing, when she and Thor are kind of having their meet cute and are trying to bond again. Like, there's that one sequence where they're traveling on a stinking Viking longship. The Stormbreakers, they're riding on Stormbreaker's rainbow bridge that like scatters into crystalline pieces behind them as they trail forward, and it's like this really pretty like scenery, and she and Thor have this kind of, again, a conversation that comes, and she reveals that she's got cancer and kind of how they feel about one another and all these things. But it just like feels like it's like checking a box. Like, we have to establish this before our, the mid film fight where we're going to lose, and so we can come back later and it'll be more meaningful. It doesn't feel like, it's like, it doesn't come out naturally. She just kind of outburst says that she has cancer. Again, I know there's going to be people that think like, well, I mean, that happens. Yeah, but in terms of just the film, we haven't had just normal interactions with these characters, just chatting or anybody joking around. And doggone it, man. Like, I get the point in terms of the plot thing, right? Thor has lost everybody in his life. He's terrified of losing somebody else important in his life. And again, like he see that with, even in his interactions with Mjolnir, he like, again, it's like an ex-girlfriend. At the same time, it's because he wants Mjolnir to be a part of his life too. Stuff like that. He's got all this weight, attached to that weapon as well. But again, past. As we see in the end, though, that's his whole arc is he has to learn to let go and accept what people want and accept trying to live for something better, trying to not just live for, and trying to hold on to, memories past or people's past or something like that. It's about just, in a certain way he learns to let go. That's his whole thing. He sacrifices Mjolnir at the end, and in a lot of ways he accepts Jane's decision to, like, I'm not going to sit by and go through treatment that I know is not going to work right now. I've already tried it, and I'm going to, do this thing. And so, yeah, that's great. Again, I want doggone bonding moments, man.
Yeah, small scenes.
Yeah, I still think about the stupid Thor and Loki in the elevator in the Ragnarok. That's a good, just a little bonding joke scene, and it's just a nice calm moment around all this other stuff that's not trying to necessarily push the plot forward. It pushes the relationship forward, of course, but it's also just good to hear those actors talk. And I think that's the other thing that kind of bothered me, is I think just the interactions in this, just, it feels weird. It feels weird.
Like the Valkyrie grenade scene.
Oh, yeah. Between Mighty Thor and Valkyrie. And it's just, again, feels forced.
Yeah, like Valkyrie has a like a Bluetooth speaker, but it's shaped like a grenade for some reason, and it never comes back ever again, I don't think, unless, I think, I could be wrong, I don't know, but I don't think it really has a big part.
Just a one-off visual gag kind of thing.
Yeah, and and even Valkyrie as a character too was kind of just like, she was like nothing. She didn't do barely, like, she fought, but there's no character growth. Like, again, say what you will, once again in Ragnarok, she had a bit more to do, a bit more growth. She became what she was trying to hide from for like thousands upon thousands of years.
Yeah.
And she became who she was again.
Her whole thing kind of mirrors Thor's to some degree. It's like an acceptance of duty and responsibility. And there's some ties there. And in this one,
she's stabbed and then she's dropped off at a hospital, and that's it.
Yeah. And they try a little bit to develop her character, but mainly she just functions as like an additional warrior to help, ease the party members, as we say in D&D, right? To kind of balance them out a little bit in terms of the fight scenes. Because it'd probably be just boring if it was just Thor and I already forgot her name, Mighty Thor, just killing a bunch of guys with their super weapons, which are the equivalent of like mini nukes or something.
Yeah.
But they try to develop some with her. They reference the fact that one of the Valkyrie that we saw in that flashback in Ragnarok was her partner, our wife, and she died there. And again, there's a lot of guilt that's carried with that. And Gore, his whole thing is like when he's captured her and Mighty Thor, and he's trying to use them as leverage to convince Thor to bring back Stormbringer so he can open the door for Stormbreaker. And but he references, like, the gods betrayed her. How did you feel about watching your partner die there in your arms at the just behest of, by orders of the gods, by the hand of the god, and all these things? And, she cries, and again, it's actually quite powerful, and you think that might have some payoff, because there is some recognition there. My girlfriend partner died in the service of the gods, and I left because of just how horrible and stupid the whole situation was. My whole lot in life was set to be. But they don't deal with that emotionally afterwards, and you get a hint of it when, again, beforehand, I think they talk about it with Korg after he goes through and exit, and he's just a face there. She's drunk, tipsy, leaning on a bar, talking with Korg, and they reference their emotional sense of loss. But again, it's just like, she doesn't really go through that much of a change. Yeah. Like you say, literally, her main, that's not an arc, just her path through the movie is, I feel I'm getting kind of bored being king of New Asgard. People kidnapped your kids. I feel responsible for that. I'm going to go try to get them back. Okay, I got wounded. I'm going to make sure everybody who's going to go do it, i.e. Thor, has the resources to get the kids back. And that's it. Exactly. But I'm done. That's it. Like, I was hoping, like, oh, maybe we get some emotional fallout after that scene with Gore. Like, that was, like, really powerful. I mean, again, Gore's got a point, man. In the service of these gods, and there's sometimes, like, petty squabbles or family squabbles, like, hundreds, if not thousands, die. It's interesting. But again, it's just like, it's like the Buzz Lightyear thing. Interesting concept. We're not going to do much with it.
Nope. It's so stupid too. Like, they also could have had more characters as a part of the group and team if need be, because what Sith is acknowledged to in this, but she just loses an arm, but that's about it. Just like, she makes a small cameo. I think the actress wanted to come back and do more Thor stuff too, but it's just like, you could have done so much more stuff with her.
Let's just stop a second and think about, okay, Lady Sif comes back, she loses an arm. They joke about the fact that she's lost an arm, like, while she's laying there bleeding. Which is like crazy to me.
Okay.
But let's stop to think about this for a second. Both she and Thor lost all of their friends. Yes. Everybody who was in that group that nobody remembers their names, admittedly, it's understandable. Yeah. But they were assumedly deep friends of both Thor and Lady Sif, and they lost all of them.
Yep.
They were all brutally killed, and we don't get to see her dealing with that fallout. We just assume that Thor's dealing with that fallout while dealing with the fallout of losing everybody else in his life. So exactly, it's just like there's an avenue. Actually, I almost prefer dealing with Lady Sif in the thing than Valkyrie, just because Valkyrie doesn't seem to have a big emotional arc to go through.
Well, I was thinking about this too. Why couldn't you have Sif and Valkyrie get together?
That's an option too. Yeah.
Literally. No, they could have done way more with Valkyrie and maybe emphasized more her relationship stuff, and for sure could have given her a bit more of a meaty role than what they did what they officially did when they released this film. Yeah. So I don't know. If
it was a little bit longer, it would have been nice to just have a bit more of a balance, like give the villain some development, give both Thor and Mighty Thor some development, and then let's give Valkyrie some development if you want to bring her into that. Because it feels like, again, they kind of set that up, but they're just rushing through her kind of storyline.
Yeah, for the sake of the plot.
Yeah. Again, essentially, it's just, they're on that railroad, man. They're just putting down tracks so doggone fast. They're not really thinking about where they're going. They just got to keep the thing moving.
Exactly. And that's the main thing. Everything kind of revolves around the arching grand universe scaling plot, and there's this there is emotional and like personal connection, but it's far less considered than that of Thor Ragnarok, which really tried to. If anything, Thor Ragnarok had the opposite situation, in which it really was mostly about the characters, and then the overall arching Ragnarok is happening is a secondary thing.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny.
Yeah, that's part of the, there's some humor in that too. It's like Ragnarok's not even happening. It ends up just being a tool to kill Hela.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like they actually stopped Ragnarok. Thor technically stopped Ragnarok when he defeated what's his face. So it's just like,
yeah, so true.
Nice.
But and that's the thing, once again, the geniuses who make these trailers make all kinds of films look great, good or bad. And I had so much high hopes for this picture. It's a shame that it ended up as messy as it did. And I don't know if this is necessarily just a one-off bad film or near bad film that directors inevitably make in their career. So who knows? Oddly enough, it feels like the capper to the Thor series in a way.
Yeah.
But yet they are setting up a sequel in which Hercules is going to fight Thor. Yeah. Or there's going to be like a war with the gods within the gods kind of thing.
And then again, emphasizing kids' involvement, because Korg is, they're setting up that he's going to have a kid. Thor has an adopted kid. So, and, he rescued all the kids, and the kids are going to play some role. They're all training, and Heimdall's son is learning to kind of essentially take his father's position.
Yeah, and then like they set up the whole Valhalla possibly because they kind of leave that on a cliffhanger because they show Jane in Valhalla. Mm-hmm. So they're like setting up that maybe they'll go more into depth with that. Maybe, I don't know. So who knows? if they do make a fourth one, I don't. This film's not doing too well. I think on Rotten Tomatoes, last time I checked, it was like at 68, which is pretty low. Not as low as stinking Eternals, of course. Anything's better than that. But yeah, I don't.
I guess this feels. I mean, maybe it feels like a capper because this is the end of Thor's dealing with loss period. He loses his mom in the second movie. He loses his, his dad and some of the people on Ragnarok, and certainly all his friends on Ragnarok, in Ragnarok. And the Infinity War, he loses his brother. Spoilers, by the way.
Yeah.
But and then in Endgame, he, is
loses a friend.
Yeah, and he's trying to make up. And speaking of which, he lost half of the Asgardian survivors in Infinity War as well. And so just like, I guess it has been like 4 films in the making in terms of him having to just accept the suffering he's had to undergo. And that's the other thing too, again, like all of the Asgardians that died in Infinity War, they don't get to come back because they didn't die in the snap. So it's just like, again, okay, fine. He's dealt with that, and he's found kind of new purpose in terms of children, which is interesting too, because it's like it wasn't enough for him just to be king. Because he never considered himself to be a particularly good king, but as far as what he can serve for his people, as like as a hero, as someone to look up to, and to be a good god for his people. Okay, that's complete now, I guess. So it has been a long time they've been playing that part, though.
So we'll see what they do. If I would imagine they might make a fourth one.
We'll see. We'll see.
It really is just kind of like man.
No, I'm feeling that superhero fatigue for sure.
At least for the Marvel stuff, I'm feeling that fatigue. I'm just like so burnt out. It's the same stuff, and even their stuff that they try to push it a little bit with like something new, they ended up going back to the formula anyways at the end. So it's just like the same stuff over and over again, and it's just like, oh, good Lord. I'm tired of all the interconnected films. I just kind of want a separate film series now, just kind of doing its own thing. It's just, but at least we got DC.
Yeah, they're taking a few more chances, which is nice. But
yeah,
even then, it takes something really special, be honest, for me to be like really invested. I mean, even the Disney Plus series, to be honest with you, like the first episode's okay, that's fun, but as it goes on, I just get bored real quick. I think the quality also dips, but
yeah. Again, the best one was probably WandaVision, I would say.
Yeah, and even then, as it breaks that here are different decades of television being kind of messed with, and this weird dark undercurrent. Even when that's revealed, it kind of turns into more conventional Marvel fare. But
yeah, that's true. But even then, I feel like it kind of, at least it felt a little bit more fulfilling. Like, okay, now we're just gonna deal with the villain and deal with the aftermath, all this stuff. I didn't mind it as bad as like some.
I mean, and then they have fun with the villain reveal and certain parts of it, but yeah, so Thor Love and Thunder, kind of better than Dark World, but not particularly great.
No.
It's mercifully less than 2 hours, so in theory,
and maybe that was an issue of it. Maybe it could have been a little bit longer to flesh out all this stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that would help some, but we get what we got.
We shall see what the future holds for the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
Oh
well.
But at least we can all both agree that Doctor Strange 2 was far better than this trash heap.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I really like that
It's
film.
more interesting, I'll say that.
It has consistent directorial vision than this, which feels very confused and all over the place.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we don't have any questions for this episode. If you want to leave us a question for future episodes, please comment down below in this video and we will answer it. So if you like our content and want to support the show, then please like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really do appreciate the support either way. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Take care.